Welcome back to The Workaround. My name is Bob Gilbreth. You are in good company with over 11,000 fellow entrepreneurs and innovators who follow my stories from a career in tech startups and corporate innovation. Sitting here right now to make you think, smile, and discover a shortcut to success or a trap to avoid. And I am, I've been talking about this a couple times. I'll talk about it more here, but once again, I've been spending the summer pretty damn isolated in northern Michigan, where we go to be in the woods and the lake and escape from the city heat. But it also means that I'm alone to my thoughts a lot more and letting my hair grow out more because my barber is still down south in Cincinnati. And for some reason, I don't want to find a new one up here. But anyway, as the hair grows and the thoughts forms, I get a lot more self-reflective on things. And this essay today that I will share is something that has kind of something I've been thinking about for a long time, but even more recently, I've had some epiphanies that I think you might enjoy. And this is especially going out to folks who are thinking about selling their company someday, people who are thinking about making a big job switch or in the process, that really I'm going to encourage you through this, hopefully, to take some time off and do what I've finally learned to do, which is take some time for that self-reflection, which is so key. This one is called Pause Now or Pay Later: How I Should Have Exited Without Re-Entering So Soon. Don't do anything for at least a year. This is the most common advice that post-exit entrepreneurs share when they write their books or appear as guests on podcasts. They caution that there is a natural tendency to want to get back on the horse, to build something bigger and better, and keep the dream team working together. It's the advice I give too. The only problem, I didn't follow it when I should have. It took me 4 years of grinding through the challenges of building that next startup. Finally, with the help of friends and getting smacked in the face by reality, I escaped the prison I built for myself and found a way out of it. It took me a few years later to finally understand why I didn't listen to this chorus of advice. This is my story, which might help you learn the lesson faster than I did. Most people on the other side of a big self-discovery say that it took a crisis to get them there. It's that point where the ego hits its limits, burns down, and makes room for a new and improved self to form. But every path is a little bit different. Any progress I've made started with a mini midlife crisis that I think I've had every day of my life since my mid-20s. In other words, I constantly reflect on how I got to this point in my life and whether or not I'm on the right path. But I did have a moderate breakdown in fall 2019 that helped me build back up. It happened during the second and final year of an earnout as part of the sale of my startup. I should have been ecstatic. We insured a great deal for the company. Our team was well ahead of pace in maxing the earnout, and our new owners essentially left us alone. The problem was that I could see that the good times wouldn't last much longer. I spent much of my days with the leadership team of our new acquirers, mostly playing defense so that my team could remain left alone. It was not a pleasant experience. No one was evil, but they were wrapped up in the kinds of politics and power trips that I had left behind long ago. I knew that our wonderful culture and high-performance team would be swallowed up in this awfulness eventually. The hardest part was having new bosses in my head. We live in social cooperation, so our minds form models of our friends, family, coworkers, and clients. But as CEO, I didn't have a direct boss to occupy my mind. That meant I could focus on my team. And since we built a very strong culture with positive relationships, my mind was full of love and positivity. Each day felt like a peak experience, like a heaven on earth. But now, this peace was invaded by people who worked in a culture led by a CEO who cared little for others. It was his way or the highway, and his way was adopted, in turn, by most of the executive team around him. They were all in a kind of hell that I had freed myself of long ago. Coming to work each day was quietly miserable. I was mostly smiles on the outside, as I knew my teammates' eyes were on me. But inside, my heart was breaking, and my blood was boiling. My doctor flagged high blood pressure for the first time in my annual physical. As the months progressed, it became increasingly difficult to control my reactions, those negative reactions. I got snippy in emails. I denigrated our acquirer on our team's Slack channels. I disrupted meetings by calling out bullshit. I realized that I might go too far and sabotage our efforts. So, in October 2019, I decided to take a break. I abruptly told my boss I was leaving for a week-long vacation. I had no idea where I was going or what I was going to do. I just needed to escape. After strategizing with my wife that evening, I decided to put the dog in the car and drive to a rental home in northern Michigan, an area of the country where we had spent many pleasant summer vacations, and where I am now. I packed a bunch of philosophy books and some thoughts I jotted down over the previous few months. It really wasn't too far from what Jack Nicholson wrote to himself in The Shining. But over that glorious week and the dark, frigid fall, I explored that feeling of others in my mind. And somewhere between reading the words of Robert Greene and Eckhart Tolle, I landed on an epiphany. I get to change my mind. My negative emotions and thoughts were something I had the power to control. I was not a victim. I was allowing an unexamined part of me to run the show. I could model people without letting them run loose in my mind. I could take responsibility for everything and shift it all to a more positive frame. I spent those final few days of solitude crystallizing key insights and suggestions from Stoicism, Buddhism, Christianity, and more. I applied my strategic thinking skills to compose a personal one-pager on how to operate going forward. And I came up with an overall guiding principle. I would use my remaining few months embedded in the negative culture of this acquirer to test and better myself. And I would come away with life lessons worth much more than the check I would get at the end of the earnout. Then I drove back and quickly dove into the self-work. I began each day at the office meditating in our tiny, windowless mother's room. I became more aware of my thoughts and emotions rising, and I practiced patting them on the head and letting them go. I laughed at myself when seeing negative reactions rise and annoying meetings or emails. I recall a particular test when sitting at an all-day leadership team meeting, listening to the CEO announce a completely ill-thought-out company strategy, followed by his presentation of a new and improved company values, which he bragged took only 90 minutes of discussion. I sat, smiling blankly, refusing to get worked up. My friend across the room, Jeff, later marveled at my zen-like stare through it all. Inside, I was more like Homer Simpson, trying not to fill the swear jar.
Fiddle-dee-dee! That will require a tetanus shot. I'm not going to swear.
The efforts helped me at work and beyond. I surprised myself by laughing when cut off in traffic. I gotta tell you, it is hard to communicate how big that little change was. And noticing my mind's changes became encouraging fuel to go even further. It's working. I'm reprogramming my own mind. Then something else happened. Two of my friends and fellow exec team members and I discussed teaming up again. We each saw that this company was not a fit for us, and we loved working together. Why not start up again? My heart raced at the idea of plunging into another challenge, armed with some money in the bank, trusted co-founders, and the chance to do something more meaningful with fewer unforced errors this time. The three of us began to meet after hours in a separate co-working space where we would spitball ideas and share research on new industries. While we met sparingly, most of my waking thoughts were about the possibilities of what we could do next. We could build an even better company. We'd raise less money, form a strong culture earlier, hire known talent, and make a bigger, positive dent in the universe. But this is where I made the mistake that so many other founders warned of. I stopped thinking about how to build a better me first. Looking back, I was afraid of what I would become without a team, a cause, a next big mountain to throw myself against. If I wasn't a founder, what was I? It was easier on my ego to jump back into the battle. Time seemed to move quickly. We got our checks, I got myself fired, COVID hit, and we spent the time doing virtual meetings with potential clients and investors for the startup idea we eventually landed on. But we didn't make that big dent in the universe. We pivoted through the next 4 years from B2B HR SaaS to a professional social network to a Web 3.0 concept, and finally to a recruiting business. The toughest job I never loved. Each was a fresh crawl through glass to get from 0 to 1. As the years passed and our company failed to progress, my small team and I eventually saw the writing on the wall. I think we would have quit earlier, except that we had so much fun working together. But eventually, we accepted it was time to move on. After 5 pivots in 4 years, it was time to take the L. Writing my first note of failure to our investors, which included some close friends who were excited to back us, wasn't fun. I had never given up before. I was back to ground zero, with time on my hands. Thankfully, that old personal development playbook was still in the back of my mind. I picked up a meditation habit again. I wrote in my journal. I spent more time alone with fellow seekers. I got serious about using this Substack as a tool for reflecting on my work and life experiences, as well as helping others on their journeys. And I felt progress stirring inside me again. I exceeded KPIs in measures such as higher happiness, lower intolerance, and greater awareness of the beautiful little things in life, including each person I got to spend time with. I became grateful that the next startup didn't work out, because I'd just be back in the same place as a person. Its failure became a gift in helping me find a higher level in the game of life. Then the universe delivered us with a chance to restart our old, successful startup. Our acquiring company was sold, and our remaining team was laid off as part of the PE buyer's cost-cutting strategy. But the product was still in high demand, and customers were eager to keep buying. My partners and I decided to invest in their idea of putting the band back together. By making room in my mind and letting the universe present opportunities, I was able to see a new path forward. Today, we're enabling others' success, and we're doing it without raising a fund or pressuring ourselves or our CEOs to do it at scale. Now, this doesn't take 40 hours a week. So why not do more self-discovery and improvement? It's work that's not rushed. I'm not into intense retreats or finding a guru. Instead, I spend most of my time reading, writing, and trading ideas with a community of fellow seekers. Each of us is finding our own path rather than following a leader. And I increasingly turn every business meeting, stubbed toe, or trip to the store into a classroom in becoming aware of how I think, react, and feel. I continue to uncover pockets of bullshit that I've been carrying around for way too long. It's a process that will keep me busy for a long time. But I see a better person emerging. Low stress, no fear, and more random daily moments of bliss than I ever thought possible. Recently, I found myself experiencing a brand new emotion, crying until I laugh. If you know, you know. And as I continue to wipe away the dirt and grime from the lens of myself, I see more clearly how the world and all its people work. I have less worry and more optimism about our future. I think I'm making better business decisions now too, even though this seems less important. Maybe there's a connection there. Recently, I had a conversation with the memory of my friend Peter. He kept popping up in my dreams and iPhoto memories, which is usually a sign that I need to pay attention. Peter was my business partner and the original founder of the agency, which was my first entrepreneurial experience. He brought my friends, then me, in to help turn the company around and take advantage of the shift to digital marketing. I have never met anyone more generous and more happy to be here, no matter where he was. Peter was the first to leave the company after we completed the sale of our agency in 2011. Soon after leaving, he came up with a big idea that he was passionate about. He still had gas in the tank in his mid-50s and wanted to take a shot at a startup. He used a part of his winnings from our agency sale to self-fund a small team of trusted alums from the agency to get the idea off the ground. As his beta product was coming together, Peter began to look for VC backing. I ran into Peter a few months after I left the agency to do consulting with a VC firm in town. I too had a desire to start something, but didn't have an idea yet. I figured some part-time work on the VC side would give me useful perspective and connections. One Friday afternoon, I caught sight of Peter as he was waiting in our lobby, preparing to meet with one of our partners. We greeted each other and traded a few words, promising to catch up more during our scheduled lunch the following week. As the elevator doors closed, I smiled at the sight of a giddy Peter sitting there holding his laptop, awaiting his meeting. That will be me someday, I thought to myself. But our lunch never happened. Peter passed away in his sleep a few days later. I don't know why he came to mind as I processed this story and my realization. On one hand, Peter inspires me to keep pursuing dreams of a game-changing startup that can disrupt industries for the better. He loved his idea and the people he had assembled on his team. On the other hand, Peter jumped from one company right into another. Was he, like me, looking for something to fill his time and need for meaning? If he knew he had so few remaining days on Earth, would he be pitching for VC funding? Of course, I know when I speak with him now, I'm only speaking with a ghost, a memory, myself. I miss him for so many reasons, including the chance to get his perspective. The one thing I do know, Peter had a love of life that is exceedingly and tragically rare. He was an old soul who kept a childlike playfulness. I am not the man he was, but I want to be. So that's my work now. This summer, I'm up in northern Michigan again. We're in the woods near a lake, and I've got a little office attached to a detached garage. For me, summer is wonderfully slow, and I have time for various personal projects. One of them is going through a big folder stuffed full of documents I've written over the years. While sorting through them last week, I discovered some handwritten documents from that personal offsite I had in October 2019. I laughed and cried to myself as I realized how much progress I was making in personal development, a project I left hanging as I jumped back into the startup grind for the next 4 years. But I don't regret that wasted time. It was a necessary path to this realization. We have recurring dreams at night because our unconscious is trying to get the attention of our larger selves and challenge us to change. The same thing happens when we repeat mistakes in waking life. Finally, mercifully, we sometimes learn. I can't have that time back, but I have today. And this time I'm learning a new trick. I've not retired from work yet, but I'm retired from the fight. Instead of wrestling with the gods, I've made peace and teamed up with them. No more standing against the stream of the universe. I'm now learning how to go with the flow. David Brooks calls it climbing the second mountain. I've now reframed my day job as working on being a better human and testing myself through business. It's not the most comfortable thing to tell people you've just met when they ask you what you do for a living, but it's the mindset I wish I had adopted long ago. This motto mostly means being fully aware of what you are experiencing inside your own mind as you work. Things like noticing how you react when employees ask for help, seeing the emotions come to mind when bad news falls in your lap, and watching how your energy levels and happiness change based on the tasks you do. Writing these things in a journal helps train your mind to notice at the time, then process and integrate the insights later. This full-time job of self-discovery continues to bring me new epiphanies. For example, I've only recently realized how much I have identified with my career roles, from brand manager to agency owner to startup founder. Each had its own hero's journey, and each made me something more. But I spent too much time in these costumes and should have spent more time in the roles of husband, friend, and father. Finally, seeing this truth is helping me adjust for the better in several ways. Now, while we were all trading memes about the Astronomer CEO's Coldplay fiasco last week, this video should have gone viral instead. It's an interview with Scottie Scheffler, the #1 professional golfer in the world.
From a sense of accomplishment, but it's not fulfilling from a sense of like the deepest, places of your heart. There's a lot of people that make it to what they thought was going to fulfill them in life, and then you get there and all of a sudden you get to #1 in the world, and then they're like, what's the point? And I really do believe that, because what is the point? You're like, why do I want to win this tournament so bad? That's something that I wrestle with on a daily basis. It's like showing up at the Masters every year. It's like, why do I want to win this golf tournament so badly? Why do I want to win the Open Championship so badly? I don't know, because if I win, it's going to be awesome for about 2 minutes. And then we're going to get to the next week, and it's going to be like, hey, you won 2 majors this year. How important is it for you to win the FedEx Cup playoffs? And it's just like, we're back here again,
So he says things like, why do I want to win this tournament so badly? I don't know. The euphoria of winning only lasts a few minutes. You get to #1 in the world, and you're like, what's the point? Playing golf is not fulfilling in terms of the deepest layers of your heart. Replace playing golf with whatever you do for a living here, and you'd be on the right track to self-awareness. We are much more than our work. And lest you think this mentality hurts one's performance, well, Scottie went out and won another tournament the weekend after this interview. I think it's proof that self-work works. Nothing I've written here is meant to tell you what to do or not to do. Perhaps getting back on the horse immediately will lead to a billion-dollar idea that benefits 1 billion people. Maybe I'm just rationalizing my failures in a fancy pants way. You've got your own shit to figure out. I'm just a signpost here to help you see a tiny glimmer of something magic glowing in the corner of our everyday life. There's more to you than meets the eye in your mirror each morning. Here's a handful of the things I wish someone had made me copy on a blackboard 1,000 times after my exit. First, if you have enough money in the bank to take a year off, do it. FU money can also be interpreted as figure yourself out money. Second, trust the integration process. Give your mind time to reflect on the intense work you just went through. Escape into nature, which many people have done, as far away as possible, and put your communication channels on out of office for a few months. Third, do not rush to be an advisor angel investor, coach, board member, etc. Sure, give people advice as they ask, but don't turn it into a job yet. These commitments can last for years and may simply represent another rush to a role for the sake of your ego. Wait. And if it's really your calling to help others, you will be 10 times better once you spend real quality time figuring out your own self first. Finally, a tip for when people ask what's next, just say you're pausing to consider options. They'll leave you alone, and as you grow, you'll stop caring about what other people think anyway. You don't have to have a startup exit to benefit from this advice either. Every time you change jobs or consider doing so, perhaps even once a day, take a moment to reflect on how you feel. Are you happy with this role? Are you progressing, cycling, or reverting? And try to find some separation between your role and yourself. Whether you are a brand manager, startup founder, or parent of young children. Each can be rewarding in many ways, but the more we cling to them, the harder it will be to shake free of the costumes when life moves on. If you're patient, curious, and willing to lean further, always further, into the dark places in your mind, you will find a light of truth that guides you to further insight, better decisions, and moments of bliss in work and life. Okay. Hey, how we might work together. That holding company for services businesses, Fleet, that's what we're doing now. What we're doing is investing in leaders ready to start their own companies. We also do a little M&A. If this might be you, hit my office hours link. Would love to chat. A2 Influence is that return of our previous startup. It's a content development agency that helps some of the biggest brands and retailers create and distribute authentic content at scale. Revelin is our consulting practice that helps with revenue alignment, growth management, and other RevOps functions. And as always, feel free to schedule a chat with me during my office hours. Links here to discuss questions, feedback, networking, any other topic. Seriously, any topic. It's a real highlight of the week for me and a way for me to improve by meeting with you and learning from you too. So selfishly, I love it. And finally, the cool content of the week, a little something I found meaningful, you might agree. A few weekends ago, while hanging with some old friends, we decided to rewatch a timeless, time-bending film that deserves more discussion called Vanilla Sky. It's one of those movies, I think it's 15 years old at this point, maybe older, but with Tom Cruise. It's one of those movies that keeps you guessing on the first watch and sticks in your mind long afterwards. And I think it's one of those also that every time you watch it, you get new insights, much as we learn new lessons from reflecting on our own past stories. For me, this time through, I felt a lot more appreciation for the idea that life is but a dream. Whether asleep or awake, we are presented with situations that test us and offer opportunities to interpret and learn. And if you seek assistance in the process, you might be lucky enough to encounter tech support. So go check that out again if you need something to watch and enjoy. That is it for this week. Thanks for joining. Ahoy for now.